welcome to the Light Reading Podcast, the Notebook Dump edition for the week ending January 27th. I had to think for a minute. What day is it anyway? January is so long.
What month?
But you've made it. If you're doing dry January, you're almost there. Just hang it a few more days. I've got Jeff, Nicole, and Mike with me today. So we'll get started with Jeff Baumgartner. What's in your notebook, Jeff?
All right. Well, I think the big thing for me right now is that we're getting into the cable portion of the earnings season, and Comcast was first out of the chute this week, and with all eyes on how fixed wireless is impacting cable broadband growth, Comcast came out pretty flattish in the quarter. They lost, I think, 26,000 broadband subs, but they would have gained 4,000 without the impact of Hurricane Ian. But, when you put it together against 30 some odd million subscribers, I mean, that's flat. 4,000. Okay. But it wasn't a big loss. So I guess that's a positive for them right now. But they're definitely trying to continue to change the narrative on broadband. They're still viewing ARPU growth as more important of a metric than sheer subscriber growth. The question is whether investors are going to share that view. I was looking at their stock today. It was pretty, like the broadband growth, pretty flat, not much going on today. But I thought one interesting tidbit was that Comcast expects to add about 1 million network passings this year. So footprint expansion going on, a little bit more than the 800 and some odd thousand they did in 2022. So a lot of edge outs and types of expansion. So they're going to get some broadband growth from that, just not right away. So it's more of a long-term thing. That's back in the early days when I was in cable, a million subscriber cable operator was a top 10. So, I mean, it's like you're building a top 10 from the early 90s era, each year, if you kind of think of it that way. But mobile, again, was the big positive. They gained 365,000 lines in the quarter. They have like 5.31 million now, and they gained about 1.3 million for all of 2022. So still a bright spot. The mobile revenues, I was taking a look, are now eclipsing home phone revenues. So just kind of an interesting metric that for a service that's really viewed as something that's trying to keep the home broadband churn down. Pay TV, same old story, lots of losses. I'm not clear if there's still a bottom or a floor yet on pay TV subscriber losses. Definitely not this quarter. So those are the big things. The other thing that came out of it is a big global UI that they're going to put together for Skyglass in the UK and Zumo here in the US and X1. So just the whole thing about when it comes to streaming, scales the name of the game. So that's kind of the strategic reasoning behind that. So that's Comcast for you. And that's kind of what's in my notebook at this point. Charter is tomorrow, and so we'll see how they compare.
Question for you, Jeff. Actually, a couple questions. Comcast earnings are so interesting. I think they talk about theme parks and movies and mobile networks. And it's just like it's all over the place. So you mentioned the edge outs. What technology are they using to build those new locations?
Well, I believe they're going to be doing, if you're going to do anything new, it's going to be fiber to the prem.
Okay.
So they'll be using PON. I don't know what, I think they were in the past using EPON. I don't know if they're doing any GPON, but any new build from now on, definitely fiber to the prem. Yeah.
And then did they talk about, of course, as the mobile guy, I'm always curious what they had to say about building a network in their CBRS spectrum that they have. Like they keep teasing it, but it never seems like they actually do anything. Did they talk about that during the call?
It did not come up at all. It has come up in recent calls, and whenever the investment guys ask about it, they say, well, it's opportunistic, it's optionality, and so forth. We don't need to do it. It's there if we need to do it. And I think they just got tired of asking the question and getting the same answer, to be honest with you. But yeah, nothing new on that front. They didn't announce any specific plans around CBRS this time.
All right. We'll wait till next quarter, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hang in there, Mike.
Fingers are crossed. They're tired of being crossed so long.
It's hard to type that way.
For sure.
I know, it's true.
You got pretzel hand.
Yeah.
All across.
Yeah, this is normally how Mike types, just slapping the keyboard. And then good things come
Actually,
out.
I have Chat GPT do it mostly for me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
For sure. Thanks, Jeff. All right, Nicole Ferraro, aka George Santos.
Hey, just back from Jupiter, where I was the first congressman to land. Thank you. You're welcome, etc. Thank you, Kelsey. Anyway, back to being the better person, Nicole Ferraro. I am here to talk about BEAD, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, $42.5 billion worth of broadband infrastructure funds that the NTIA is managing. You've heard me talk about it before. So I have a story this week that's kind of covering an ongoing mini battle within the industry about how those dollars are going to be spent. Basically, the fixed wireless industry led largely in this argument by WISPA, the Wireless Internet Service Providers Association, has been pushing back on NTIA's exclusion of the use of unlicensed spectrum, fully unlicensed spectrum projects for eligible broadband projects for BEAD funding. So fixed wireless players have a couple of issues with this. One, a lot of them aren't going to be eligible for BEAD funding if that rule stays as it is. Two, areas that are covered by exclusively unlicensed spectrum projects are considered unserved. So it's a threat to their markets, from their point of view, that they could have BEAD funded overbuilders come in when they've put in their own private capital to invest in these areas that other providers have neglected for many years. Overall, there's just a sort of general feeling that the NTIA didn't follow the quote unquote spirit of the law, which is written to be tech neutral. Now, I think from the NTIA's point of view, they are not saying you can't use they are not necessarily saying you can't use other technologies beyond fiber, but they're prioritizing fiber by saying build out fiber everywhere you can, except in very high cost areas. The states are supposed to set those numbers as to what is a too high cost area to build fiber in. So you have wireless players and the fiber industry kind of lobbying the states to set that number at where they want it. And then the unlicensed spectrum piece is the other, sort of big concern for the wireless players, who are basically at this point asking for an amendment to BEAD to say that unlicensed spectrum projects are fully reliable broadband. They've been meeting with NTIA for the past several months and released, David Zumwalt, the CEO of WISPA, released a very long letter and presentation summarizing those meetings last week that got into some of the reasons that unlicensed spectrum projects should be considered just as reliable as licensed spectrum projects, et cetera, including engineering advances and so on. So you can go read all about it, all sorts of technical and political issues involved here. Basically, we're going to need to wait and see if NTIA chooses to respond to this by amending their rules at all. It would need to happen basically in the next 6 months before they set BEAD allocations, because once they set states' BEAD allocations, the states need to write up their plans for how they're going to use that funding. So I think we're going to continue to see this battle. The fiber industry is very much against any kind of amendments to the BEAD rules as they are, because BEAD as it is very friendly to the fiber industry, but just ignoring the interests of the industries themselves and getting at the heart of what this money is supposed to do, which is close the digital divide. It depends on who you ask whether there is enough money in BEAD to do that exclusively with fiber. If you ask somebody like Jonathan Chambers, who is a partner with Connexon, which is the a broadband consultancy that works with electric co-ops to deploy broadband, and also has an ISP arm where if the electric co-ops want to build broadband but they don't want to be the ISP, Connexon will be the ISP. Jonathan Chambers says there's already more than enough money if we were to just use these electric co-ops to build out fiber. There's enough money to get fiber everywhere. Somebody like Gary Bolton will say something similar. Maybe not that there's already enough money. Gary Bolton, the CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association, but that there's enough money to prioritize fiber at very least to not relegate rural regions of the country to what he would call inferior technologies. But then if you ask the fixed wireless players, they say not only is there not nearly enough money in BEAD to reach everybody, but that if you try to reach everybody with fiber exclusively, we're not going to close the digital divide, and all these people are going to be waiting much longer to get service than they would if we just used the technologies that we have now in the fixed wireless bucket. So that's the argument at play. I reached out to Next Century Cities, which is more of a consumer advocacy organization. They work with local governments to expand broadband. And they said, yeah, we do think we need to see more unlicensed spectrum projects awarded through BEAD. So I reached out to NTIA, of course, and they did not answer me. They do answer when they want to. So I think they don't want to be on the record on this yet at all, because they're definitely getting hammered. So that's not hammered. They're not getting drunk. That's not why they're not answering me.
we think that's the reason.
I can't say one way or the other. Yeah. All I know is they didn't answer me. So look, if you want to clear the record on why NTIA, get back in touch. But
you can make an educated guess on that.
Yeah.
But,
anyway.
But if you were like a betting person, then do you think the argument that's being posed from the fixed wireless side is going to change anything at this point, based on the lobbying powers that are kind of going at this?
So it's kind of interesting. Well, I'm not a betting person because the world is just too much of an ongoing nightmare that changes every moment with some new horrifying thing. So
you don't want to layer on.
But beyond that, so the fiber industry, it's so weird because broadband is weirdly a bipartisan subject, yet it seems like fiber is for Democrats and wireless is for Republicans. When you look at the arguments on Capitol Hill, I don't really understand totally why that is, except maybe that they like to disagree. So maybe they have a good time finding different lobbyists to be friends with. But so as far as the different avenues go, no, WISPA had sought for Congress to amend the infrastructure law to basically make it so that NTIA can't enforce any of those rules. That's not going to happen because the Democrats in the Senate aren't going to sign a bill like that. And President Biden, I don't think, is going to sign a bill that goes against his NTIA chief. So I think they have a better opportunity bullying the NTIA. That's a better word than hammering. I think they have a better opportunity there, but the fiber industry has been pretty powerful in the writing of the infrastructure law and in the writing of the BEAD rules. So I'm not sure. But then again, I would say that the states are in charge of how to spend this money. And NTIA and the Commerce Department have to approve those plans. But we'll see how much they're willing to disagree with states when states and local communities come to them and say, we have to use fixed wireless here, or we have to use, a non-fiber technology here. I don't think the NTIA is going to be super interested in having ongoing battles with local communities who are telling them the technologies they need. But it's a matter of the lobbying power and who really understands what they're being lobbied about, because it's very easy to tell people that they need a certain technology when they don't understand why they need it if your argument is better than the other lobbyists. So I'm going to say one more thing. Sorry, I've been talking for way too long, in my opinion. But the NTIA is expected to release some more state guidance on how they can use their own broadband maps when it comes to defending how much BEAD money they need and stuff, because that's been a sort of up in the air with how those state maps can be used against the CostQuest data. So there may be more guidance to come in those further clarifications about unlicensed spectrum and stuff like that. But I know the fiber industry is hell-bent on keeping the rules as they are. So we will see.
Shoot.
Okay.
That is
Yeah, that's a lot to keep up with. Thanks for doing that, Nicole. Thanks for taking one for the team.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no problem.
Just imagine you like never sleeping, just chugging coffee late at night. Like,
well
then it could go this way.
Once upon a time, there was an ex parte.
Exactly.
Nicole Americano
It's
Ferraro.
quite literally what it's like at 3:00 in the morning in my apartment. Just like random thoughts about BEAD and the end of the world. Anyway, back to you, Kelsey.
Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate you. All right. Mike Dano, what have you got for us when you're up at night, not sleeping, thinking about FWA and CBRS?
Yeah. Speaking of not sleeping and being up all night, this week Verizon and AT&T held their quarterly earnings calls, and both Jeff and I woke up at the absolute crack of dawn to cover those earnings calls for both of those companies. But Jeff is still going to have to do it for the rest of the cable companies. Luckily, I don't typically listen to those. Poor Jeff is up every morning for seemingly the next week or two doing all those calls.
Fun fact, Jeff's not a real person. We actually replaced him with a robot 3 years ago.
Jeff GPT.
Yes. I love it.
That is the only way to explain Jeff's output, to be honest.
There you go.
But yeah, it's always interesting. I mean, listening to those earnings calls is always a real eye-opening thing, because it's really the one time every 3 months that you really get a real clear view as to kind of what's going on at a particular company. You can kind of get a sense of what's going on with, whatever products they've got or whatever, but they really, get down to brass tacks during those calls and talk about, this is working, this is not working. And so with AT&T and Verizon, it really kind of sounded like a tale of two carriers, where Verizon had Verizon was real early out of the gate with 5G. They had a nationwide 5G marketing campaign long before they offered actual 5G services around the country. They played a starring role in the release of the first iPhone that had 5G. So like that, the Verizon flag was real strong in 5G. And they really on this latest call, they really said that they had basically set their expectations too high, and edge computing, private wireless networks, stuff like that just did not play out the way that Verizon thought that it would, and so they had to eat a little bit of crow during their earnings call and lower their expectations for 2023. But on the other hand, we've got AT&T, and they basically did the opposite. Like, they are doing really well. AT&T was really late to the 5G game. They're sort of they're trailing everybody else in terms of build out of 5G, but they're doing great. I mean, they're getting a lot of customers. They've sort of got their finances under control after selling the DirecTV stuff and ending their big Hollywood adventure. And AT&T is they're kind of looking okay now. And so it was interesting to see those. This is the end of the year calls. They sort of give their outlook for this coming year, and it really is, sort of Verizon sort of on the downswing, and AT&T is looking pretty good right now.
Was there any insight on why the edge computing has been difficult for Verizon? Did any of the analysts get into that?
They didn't really talk about the reasons for it. I mean, there's a lot of sort of speculation out there about it. In fact, we had after the AT&T earnings call, they held a call for media specifically, and that topic came up. And the head of network at AT&T is a guy named Chris Sambar. He's been in that job for almost a year now. And boy, he had some interesting things to say about private wireless networks specifically, that, he basically said, hey, they've been around for actually a long time. Like, this is not a new thing. They were around in the era of LTE and 4G. They're still here in 5G, and there's really not that much that is really exciting about it. He does believe it's going to be a business, but he really sort of put a real pragmatic spin on that whole concept. Is just like, you know what, it's probably going to be a thing at some point, but there's really nothing that's driving it right now. And so, to say that it's going to be the next greatest thing is maybe a little bit of a reach. So that was pretty interesting from him, from his perspective.
That is interesting because, they're trying to figure out like the business cases or the business drivers for 5G. And it feels like fixed wireless is become one for Verizon and T-Mobile, and AT&T not so much.
Yeah, it's interesting. They talked about fixed wireless on the AT&T call, and if you kind of read or listen real carefully to what the CEO John Stankey said, he basically said that fixed wireless is really not that profitable in terms of the actual services that you can offer and the bits that can go through your network. And he sort of hinted that what AT&T really wants to do is wait until there are services that are more profitable that come along in the future that they can allocate their network capacity to. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting position, but particularly given that, like, for example, Apple is reportedly getting ready to release their AR glasses later this year. I wonder if that's what he's thinking about. That's just speculation on my part, but he basically said like fixed wireless is not a great use of your network capacity.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting debate. Yeah. How the strategies are so different. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. A lot to unpack there.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
And how about you, Kelsey?
Yeah, well, I had kind of a fun one in my notebook this week. Yes, AT&T released they announced that they're using robotic dogs from Ghost Robotics for their FirstNet service. I can see everybody shaking their head like, not a good idea.
Mike shaking his head.
Oh.
But they can run up to 7 miles per hour on flat terrain, which I think is on par with you, Mike, about how fast you run. Right?
That's way faster than I can run. Holy crap!
They can also,
they
can swim too, up to 1 meter for 30 minutes underwater. It's pretty impressive. And they're going to be used for emergency and first responder use cases. They can go in kind of hazmat areas where maybe there's a chemical leak, or they can detect IEDs and bombs, and go in a lot of places that might be dangerous for people to go. And they can also launch drones from their backs and receive drones, and carry things, all kinds of stuff.
Sounds like Boba Fett's backpack.
Yeah, pretty much.
Launch things right from the backpack.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting, I guess. Yeah. Can they make a souffle or anything?
What are they launching?
The drones.
What?
The launching drones, Nicole.
Sorry, I got really mad and the Queens came out on that one. What are they doing with the drone? What are the drones for?
I mean,
to kill us?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, for murder.
Sorry, I think I zoned out for a second.
The murder dog.
Just like, no.
So Verizon murder dogs?
Yes, that's exactly what they're for.
Oh dear,
Kelsey, you need to cover this.
Point. Oh no,
I think you buried the lead, Kelsey. Verizon is coming to kill us with murder dogs. Oh, AT&T. Oh, that's fine. I expected that.
Okay. A fleet of murder dogs carrying their murder dogs.
The Skynet.
Yeah, the problem is like we've all seen that Black Mirror episode from a few years ago with the killer robot dogs. And it's hard to they just get a bad rap, but supposedly they're going to be doing some good things. And then Boston Dynamics, they also have their dog Spot, and I think there's like a university in Ontario, Ontario Tech University. They're testing out the dogs for like nuclear power safety. And right now, the AT&T's FirstNet dogs are being used by the Air Force at Tyndall. Y'all, let me just get this out, okay?
I'm sorry, but you're saying such awful things.
Like nuclear came up, and Nicole's like, "Oh no."
I mean,
don't worry.
Okay, so I'm going on mute.
They're going there so you don't have to, Nicole. The other thing I was just going to mention is they are being used at by the Air Force at Tyndall Air Force Base, so they can patrol the perimeter, send back data, and video streams. But not Nicole's backyard.
You know, I
I'm
gotta say,
excited.
your story on that, Kelsey, was good because it had all the pictures of it, so you could really get a sense of like what these things look like, what they do. So like, if listeners, if you're out there listening to this, you should go to the website and find that story, the light reading website, because it is pretty good and pretty interesting.
Thanks.
I didn't see any pictures of them murdering anyone, but it was a good story.
I did see your tweet, Mike.
You were told not to use those
Yeah.
photos, right? Of the murder photos. Yeah.
Yeah, someone came to my front door and they were like, "Hey, sign this."
It was part of the embargo
Yeah.
agreement. Yeah.
I also need your
Sorry. Back on mute.
Yeah, that's all I got for the robot dogs. Didn't anybody see anything funny? Any funny pitches this week? Are you guys getting MWC pitches already?
Yeah, definitely. I'm on the list, and I've gotten a whole bunch of meeting requests. I mean, actually, we had a little bit of Mobile World Congress news. They expect 80,000 to attend, so that's not too shabby. It's not.
How does that compare to like pre-pandemic numbers?
It was like 100,000, right?
Yeah, it was like 120,000 was like the high point, I think.
Nicole's worst nightmare, next to the robot dogs. Are that many
They're
people in one space?
From all over the world.
I didn't mean to pitch
Not
ever,
saying
Nicole.
a word. Not saying a word.
Don't encourage her, Kelsey. Come on.
Sorry.
It's like 3 people in a room is my worst nightmare at this point. So,
And the convention center is like maybe a square mile, maybe. So they just pack everybody into that one spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
good luck.
Oh yeah.
Did you guys sign up for the biometric scan Easy Breeze thing? Whatever. Don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know. They were, when I was registering, it was like asking for like pictures and stuff, and I had to hold my phone up to my face within this little circle, and it was supposed to I guess they can scan you so you can go into the event faster. Something.
Wow.
Another thing Nicole would never
No,
sign
I think
up
that
for.
was a hacker. I think that was a hacker. And
Right.
just gave away whatever classified documents you were hiding in your house. You just gave them away through that biometric scan. Yeah.
Hello. Whoops. There's just another Kelsey wandering around
Right.
out there.
Yeah. It's okay. We need more anyway.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
Send them samples of my hair and skin, so I think that's fine. Totally normal.
And you didn't give them like a vial of blood or
Yeah,
anything.
they did.
Just for
I mean,
that.
just a small one.
Okay.
They were like,
that.
this doesn't match our previous sample. I mean, thank you for sending this in.
Yeah, they did said they were going to send me a robot dog to collect the sample, so I'm
Just got a big knife, like, okay, let's do it.
just
Like I'm in. Yeah. Bring it
We
on.
forgot to mention Phil was one of the robot dog victims, and that's why he's not here today. Right? Yeah.
We haven't
Kelsey,
announced that yet. I
Did you
think
put that
was-
picture in your story? Oh,
You're
sorry.
right.
It's embargoed.
Phil's,
Mhm.
That's embargoed.
Phil, oh my God, is that the dog? Hang on.
What's
no,
going-
guys,
what's
no,
happening?
it's a trap.
Hurry.
Don't do it.
Oh no! Oh, it's Phil. Oh, Phil. Hey.
Hey everybody.
Yeah.
How are
Sorry
you?
I'm late. I was out taking photos of the moon. Did you know that it's really hard to photograph the moon? I'm gonna go back to my dark room now, and I love photos.
I don't know how to respond to this.
Mhm. For those of you listening, yeah, that's Phil. That's Phil Harvey, our boss, that
Yeah.
came in. Not at
Yeah.
all, Jesse.
It was really him.
Yeah.
He
Once
looks
again,
better
we're
than ever.
I
causing-
love news and photography and Texas. Kinda.
In Texas, yes.
Yes.
Phil's going to be so glad that he didn't come to this one
He's
again.
gonna be like, you're all
Yeah,
fired.
the last one. How do we get ourselves out of this?
I think Phil's gonna. No, I won't do that. I won't subject you guys to that again. All right. Thanks everyone for listening in to the Notebook Dump. Thanks to Jeff, Nicole, Mike Dano, and Phil the dog. Over and out.
Only Mike has a last name. We're Jeff and Nicole.
Sorry. Okay, bye.
He's Mike
Bye,
Dano,
Kels.
damn it.
Bye, bye, Kelsey, as well.